Hello everyone, today we're going to look at the Netherlands and we're going to look at the winners and losers in our country. Before, we were looking at the way the world economy developed itself in worldwide space. We looked at Europe, we're looking at locations and regions and all kind of developments in our region, in our world. And today we're going to look at the Netherlands as a country which has winners and losers as well. And what I would like to show you is the following. First of all, we are going to look at a very important thing, and that's called the Globalization Index. So what is that? We're going to look at outsourcing, what a brainport is, location factors, and what a regional development policy is. But before all that, we're going to look at our Globalization Index. And what is that? Well, the Globalization Index shows us how strong you are as a country on the international market. That means that what is your influence on the world? And you can do that, you are high on that list when you are both socially and economically active in the world and on the level of politics. So that means that you have some kind of influence in the world. And when you're looking at the Globalization Index of 2023, which was of course last year, shows you that Switzerland is one of the most influencing countries in the world at this point of time, and the Netherlands is on the third place in this row. So that means that we and Belgium and Switzerland have a lot of influence in the globalization process, both on social, economic, and political level. So that is, well, something which is important, of course, because that shows something about the influence that we as a country have in the world economy, because that is the thing that we were talking about. So when the Netherlands is at the third place on this list, why can we do that? How did we reach that spot? Well, we of course do have multinationals, and these multinationals are outsourcing their business across the globe. And of course we do have locations of production facilities everywhere around the world, because of the fact that the wages are lower, but as well that there are certain countries which do have specific knowledge about the production of certain goods. And that, of course, is important. If you do not have the knowledge to produce something, you just can't do that. So these multinationals were looking around and they found that there are countries which are perfectly capable of producing the things to a high standard with a good quality in that certain country. Of course, on the other hand, the availability of mineral resources can be a key ingredient of outsourcing as well. Yes, it's probably cheaper, but it can be interesting as well to find a certain product, a certain mineral in another country where the wages are lower to mine them. And of course, you can think of another reason. There are more reasons why these multinationals have their production facilities abroad. One of the most important reasons that we did not name yet is environmental issues. In the Western countries, we do have all kind of rules about the environment, and when you're going to look at Asia, you see that many of the countries there do have less rules about this. And that means that our multinationals can pollute more there than in our own country, which of course is not that great, but it does happen. Well, now we are going to look at the Netherlands as a country itself, and we are going to look at why is the Netherlands so important for that globalization process. Well, we do have brain ports. And what's that? You might know what a main port is. That is an important location in which ships and trucks and all kind of goods are being transferred and relocated across Europe. Well, when you're talking about a brain port, we're not really transporting products or goods, but we are transporting knowledge. And when you're looking at the brain port, this is a region which has world players. There are the multinationals, there are governments, there are educational institutions, and they are all working together. And together they create an enormous amount of knowledge which we need and which we can sell, of course. And um, when you do have a lot of knowledge, it of course leads to the attraction of people from abroad. So that this is what we call the brain gain. It gains a lot of people from abroad. And when you look at the map of the Netherlands on the right, you can see the report grade, which shows you which regions are having actually a brain port. You can see the biggest one is the brain port in the region of Eindhoven, but you see one near Utrecht and Wageningen, you see one around Amsterdam, The Hague, Leiden, and you see one in Groningen. And that means that almost the whole of the Netherlands is covered in brain ports, except for the northwest of our country, and of course the southwest. Well, the reasons why there are not that much brain ports in the northwestern part of the Netherlands has all to do with the following thing, and that are location factors. That are reasons why companies want to reside at a certain location. Of course, it's very important for a company to have a location which is reachable. I mean, there have to be roads, there has to be infrastructure, and that infrastructure is needed to get the brains, the people on that certain location. And you might know that they want to create a new rail track from Lelystad to the north of the Netherlands, which is called the Lelylijn. And this track should provide a better connection with the north of the Netherlands so that people are capable of moving northwards. Okay, I'm going to show you that later. There are more reasons that companies want to reside at a certain location. For example, the presence of companies that complement and support each other, like in Eindhoven. The fact is that the companies can support them themselves, should say that. Well-trained labour forces. When you look back, we earlier talked about the car manufacturing brands and factories in the south of Germany. There are well-trained labour forces, and they are very, very, very much needed to create a good quality product. And of course, the proximity of interesting markets. And think of the Blue Banana, the region that is from the north of Italy through Switzerland, the south of Germany, through Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands to London. And of course, that is the interesting market in which a certain company wants to reside in. Next, if you look at this map, we're talking about the same thing, still the location factors. You can see that a brain port needs, of course, connections with other main ports as well. And it's very important to notice that the Amsterdam Airport, Schiphol, and the seaport of Rotterdam are nearby. That means that they can connect with each other, and they can share their knowledge, and they can share their products. And that means that the influence of the Brainport Eindhoven is enormous. In your book, there is a graph which shows you how many people there are connected to that Brainport of Eindhoven. It means that a big part of Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and even the northern part of France are connected with this Brainport. So this shows you the importance of the connection with the other main ports. Well, there are, of course, other things which are important for the possibility for such a brain port to grow, and that is what we call a regional development policy. And what happens is that certain governments, like the national government in The Hague, or the European government in Brussels or Strasbourg, are investing in brain ports. So in the past, when the center of Eindhoven still wasn't a brain port, but did have its capabilities of growing, becoming a brain port, got investments from the European Union. And these investments created a climate which was interesting for the companies to open new locations there. And that happened. It flourished, and it changed from an industrial sector in the time that Philips, of course, was the big player, which had the biggest role in the economy, and it changed into the service sector. And this worked pretty well in Eindhoven, but it did not work in East Groningen because there weren't enough people who wanted to work there. The young people moved to the Randstad, so the facilities disappeared and people did not want to come back there. They tried it, but it did not work out. And I think, for myself, that the most important reasons for that was that there weren't any connections with the ports. There wasn't an airport nearby. There wasn't a port for boats nearby. Rotterdam was way too far away. So they investment in Delfshaven in a new a boat dock there. And yes, it worked out a little bit, and yes, there is some growth there, but it did not work out that well like it did in Eindhoven. So could East Groningen develop itself in another way? Well, probably in an industrial way. Nowadays, Groningen is still important for our resources for the gas. Of course, this is stopped now, and because of the availability of enormous amounts of flat land, you mean it was our industry of our agricultural location, of course, we could use these locations for, well, working onto the energy transition. So if we're talking about the energy transition, why do not use East Groningen as the place to invest into? With that in mind, you could say that all the money that's gained from that process could be transferred to Groningen itself, so they are getting profit out of it. And I think that if that happens, that East Groningen could grow again. But nowadays that does not happen yet. Okay, that was it. That was the thing that I wanted to show you, and I hope that you got an idea how the Netherlands shows its importance in the world when we're talking about development, when we are talking about globalization, and having the knowledge to be important in the world.